Okay, so here we are at the machine. I'm going to show you how to align a vise when you install the vise. So I've shown you how to align the vise to check it. I've shown you how to align a vise if it's a little bit out of alignment. And now we're going to go ahead and go over actually removing the vise from the machine and then realigning it. So looking at the vise right now, it's aligned to the x-axis. So right now that vise is aligned to the machine. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and physically remove the vise and then act as if I'm adding a vise to a machine that doesn't have one. So first thing I need to do is loosen up both of the clamp kits, okay? So what the clamp kits are is it's just a square nut or a T-nut with a T-bolt with a nut on top of it, okay? And that's what holds your vise in. Now if I loosen both of those, I can move the vise wherever I need to. Now when you come up to a machine and it doesn't have a vise on it, or if I'm coming up to a machine where I need to maintain the vise, which in this case would mean if I have a vise, it might have dirt and oil and chips underneath it. So those will affect how close my vise can get to being square. So if I'm coming up to a machine that I haven't used before and I move the vise out of the way, you might see that again there's chips and other objects underneath the vise. So part of either your weekly maintenance of the machine, or if I'm getting ready to do high precision parts, or again just part of maintenance on the machine once in a while, is to come in here and clean all the chips off the table and also clean the bottom of the vise and then reset it in position. I can then come in with the air hose and clean off the rest of the table. And then my final step will be to come in here and actually clean the table itself. Now you may see some witness marks from the vise. Those may or may not come off. We're going to check it in a second to see if those need to be removed. But what I can do is I can take some cleaner and spray the table and then get that final bit of dirt and oil off the table. So if I'm able to come here and place my hand across here and it feels, I can't feel those lines, it might just be staining on the table. If I can feel them, I may have to come in with a stone and actually stone the table. So here's some other tools that we might use in order to clean the table. One would be a Scotch-Brite pad. Okay, and we'd use the Scotch-Brite pad to remove the last little bit of grease and dirt there. Come back and clean that one last time. Now, if I'm cleaning the table or I'm cleaning my vise or anything like that and I end up feeling a burr is something that you have to remove using a stone. So we have specially designed stones in the shop. What I would do then is take the stone and again knock all the high spots off the area that I was working on the table. We can do the same thing with the vise, because again the bottom of the vise and the bottom of the the bottom of the vise and the top of the table should both be clean. So same thing here, you can see the chips and everything, so we would wipe those off. Come in here, clean this. Okay, any chips, any oil, any dirt, anything on the bottom of this vise is going to cause it to not sit flush. Then we could come in here. Okay, clean everything off, spray it down, get the remainder of the oil and dirt off the bottom of it. If we see some staining, we can come in here with some Scotch-Brite and clean the bottom of the vise. If we get rid of the excess oil and dirt, there still may be some oxidation on the bottom of that, but if we get rid of most of it, yeah, see, that's fine. Now if I feel across here and I feel a burr, which would be a raised up area, okay, I would then come in with the stone and clean the bottom of the vise. Okay, so once the table's clean and once the vise is clean, now I can go ahead and install it. So again, any chips that you see on the table, those have thickness, those are going to throw off your installation. And if you notice, I'm doing everything very gently. I'm taking my time doing this. This isn't about who can align the vise the fastest. This is about who can align the vise the most consistently. So again, one more wipe down of the table. Make sure I don't have any chips in the way. I'm going to move my vise over to basically the same position it was before. Okay. And then I'm going to bring my T-bolts over. And I'm just going to hold that in place hand tight. Okay. Now I still need to align the vise, and an easy way to do that is instead of just setting it on the table, if you push it forward or backward, the T-nuts will touch the edges of the T-slots and basically help you align the vise to start off with. Okay, so I tend to push them in, again, just gently push them against. And I'm going to go ahead and tighten up that other side like we did before. That way we don't have to mess around with this side. So what I'm doing is I'm tightening up one side of the vise. I can then pivot the rest of the vise around that bolt. Okay, so let's go ahead and make our first measurement. I'm going to go ahead and bring the indicator down. Again, Y 1/1000. I'm going to go ahead and make contact with the rigid jaw. Again, only a couple thousandths. Okay, and I line up that 0. And now I'm going to go ahead and move over, and you can see what happens. Okay, basically, this side of the vise is closer than that side of the vise. So what I have to do is I have to move that side of the vise back, or I have to move this side of the vise forward. Now I know that I pushed the vise all the way back, so I know it's going to be difficult for me to push against the T-slot some more. So I'm going to stop here. I'm going to tighten my right side, and I'm going to my left side. That makes it so that when I move the vise, I move it away from that slot, which I initially pushed the vise against. So the vise is within about 5 thousandths, but I need to get it even closer. And again, just checking, I'm at 0 on that side, and I'm not even touching on this side. So what I need to do is I need to rotate the vise counterclockwise around this T-nut. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to tap the front of the vise here in the lower left-hand corner, which is going to cause the vise to move counterclockwise. I'm going to watch my indicator. See how the indicator moved? Okay, the indicator moved just a little bit. So I'm going to go back to one side of the vise, make sure it didn't move. Okay, that's still at 0. And now I'm just going to lightly tap the vise until I get to 0. Each time I get close, I'm just going to come back and check to make sure the other side hasn't moved. And I just want to continue with this. Nice light taps. We don't have to come in here and we're not pounding stakes in the ground here. Okay, we're lightly tapping the vise until the number on the right hand side of the vise is the same as the number on the left hand side of the vise. Okay, now if you go too far, let's say you went too far, all I would have to do is tap on the right hand side in order to get to move back. So right now I'm let me go ahead and 0 that out. So I'm going to go Y 1/10,000th of an inch. I'm going to get that to be back to 0 there. There we go. So it's 0 on the left, and it's probably 1/10 or 2/10 on the right. That's more than close enough for you to start machining. At this point in time, I would go ahead and tighten up the vise. Remember, you might have to compensate for tightening up the vise because it might move the vise slightly. But if I tighten up the right side of the vise and I tighten up the left side of the vise, I should be reading the same number on both sides. Now, let's say I went too far, okay? Let me loosen this side up. Okay, let's say I was tapping. And I went too far, okay? So this side was 0, and this side is now about 1.5 thou over. So if I go too far, instead of tapping on the left side of the vise, just come over and tap on the right side of the vise. Okay, we just got to move it back to that 0. Okay, when I'm tapping like this. Okay, just like you're lightly clapping. Okay, I'm not using both hands. I'm not pounding stakes in the ground. Okay, I'm just lightly moving the vise over until I get back to my 0. Okay, once I'm back to my 0, I can go ahead and tighten up the left side of the vise now. Make sure the right's tight. Do one final check. 0 on the left, 0 on the right. Z 10 thousandths. Get the indicator out of the vise.